So my sister wants to walk down the aisle at my wedding. We use that to our advantage. Hey, I'm on my honeymoon and wanted to share something important with you all. My husband loves Reddit, but we're using a secret account because he doesn't want this connected to his main one. He's right here, helping me tell our family story because he thinks it's his job to share it. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know if this works, but I do not give permission for this to be reposted anywhere else. First, I'd like to provide some context to explain how this situation developed and why our reactions were the way they were. It's a bit lengthy, my apologies. Since I can remember, my parents have shown favoritism towards my sister. This wasn't subtle at all. If my sister accused me of something, they'd believe her and punish me. If I accused her, they wouldn't believe me. Even when there was undeniable proof, they'd still give her a lighter punishment and find a way to reprimand me too. Even on my birthdays, my cake had to be a flavor she liked, while hers didn't have to be my favorite. My parents always denied knowing that I didn't like that type of cake. They even bought her a bit more than they did for me, and we always did what she wanted, even at events that were supposed to be about me. My sister was spoiled and didn't like me. She used to mostly ignore me, but things got worse when we were young teenagers. I'm not sure why, but she ended up with no friends, and her behavior got even worse. I'm not sure if her friends moved away or if they left because she was mean. My parents never mentioned any issues with her, unlike me, where they constantly teased me about my flaws. I only found out she had no friends because we went to the same school, and I noticed she wasn't hanging out with anyone anymore. Suddenly, she realized I had friends and that I used to be pretty popular. That's when I went from being an occasional target to someone she hated and wanted to take down all the time. She started accusing me and my friends of things. My parents even stopped letting me hang out with my friends, giving excuses like, "Your sister says they're not good people," or "Why do you want to leave us? Why can't you be like your sister and enjoy family time?" What saved me from complete isolation was extended family. Most of my family lived in the same hometown, and I got along with my cousins despite some age difference. At one gathering, they invited me over to something, I don't remember what, and I sadly replied, "I'm not allowed to go anywhere." When asked why, my kid self with no filter replied that it was because I wasn't allowed to have friends since my sister didn't have any. Well, that reached the adults, who apparently tore my parents apart. Later, I was scolded for lying and grounded, as if I had anywhere to go for a month, but after that they allowed me some leeway, so it was worth it. And my sister changed schools. I guess the humiliation of extended family knowing her social status was bad, and she demanded to be changed. And my parents immediately obliged, even though it cost them more since the school was further away. But she made friends on the new school. However, she never went back to the previous status quo of mostly ignoring me. I guess having felt the power of how badly she could screw with me, and angered that I told family she had no friends, she never let me go. My life was still tough. When my sister's friends came over, they'd often bully me, and my parents brushed it off as light teasing. I never invited friends over because my parents were terrible hosts, or my sister would accuse them of stealing, and my parents would believe her. However, I did become close to my cousins because my parents never treated them poorly like they did with me. Then I got my first boyfriend. I didn't want to introduce him to my family, but my parents insisted. At one point, we got separated, and he came to find me to tell me that my sister was flirting with him. By that, he meant she came over in revealing clothing, batted her eyelashes excessively, and started talking about how great she was compared to me. He was annoyed and came to tell me about it. But of course, my sister told my parents a different story, that my boyfriend had tried to flirt with her, and she had heroically rejected his advances. Guess who my parents believed? My boyfriend wasn't perfect, but I immediately believed him. I admit it was for a somewhat spiteful reason, but you have to remember, back then, I was a teenager going through a tough time with all the unfair treatment. I was full of resentment and moodiness, and I despised my sister as much as she despised me. Now let's talk about appearances, which I hadn't mentioned before because it wasn't relevant. My parents were and still are overweight, and they expressed their love through food, giving us more to eat and buying treats. As a result, my sister was and still is overweight, while I am not. In fact, I've always been on the skinny side because punishments often meant no treats or snacks. Of course, I understand that personality matters more than looks. But my sister was already rude and spoiled, even back then. Her attempts at flirting were bad because she never had to work for anything. She could just demand, and my parents would give in. Combine that with the fact that she didn't look like a supermodel, and even my self-conscious teenage self couldn't believe that my boyfriend would try to cheat on me with her. Anyway, my parents prohibited me from dating such a horrible boy. I did try to keep going in secret, but it was hard, and the relationship ended. I did get another, but again, my sister accused him of flirting with her when he refused her advances. Again, my parents believed her. I tried pointing out how this happened again, but they decided that meant I was incapable of making good choices and kept picking bad boyfriends. The relationship couldn't handle the Romeo-Juliet situation and fizzled out again. I would eventually get called a slut in high school, as I was fine with making out with boys and such, but refused to have relationships. Thankfully, it never got back to my sister or parents. My sister did bring one boyfriend home during that time. They paraded him with pride, and my parents couldn't stop telling me how great he was, questioning why I couldn't find someone like him. Until he suddenly stopped coming around, and then he became a conniving jerk who had fooled my sister. Go figure. The unequal treatment just kept going. My sister had more money to spend, better curfews, and more freedom to go anywhere at any time, while I had strict limitations. If I pointed it out, my parents would simply say it was because she was older. But when I reached that age, I still didn't get the same treatment as her. And when I brought it up, they would either deny ever saying that, or claim that it was because they couldn't trust me like they could trust her, using my sister's accusations against my boyfriend and friends as supposed proof of my poor judgment. As time passed, my sister graduated from high school and got into a college. It wasn't a prestigious one, and she didn't have any scholarships. Since my parents only focused on her achievements, I have no idea which colleges she applied to or how many rejections she faced. I do know her grades in high school weren't great, as even A-B was a big deal for her. Unlike me, I usually got good grades, but my parents never celebrated them, saying they were expected. Naturally, my parents made a big deal about paying for everything, and I was actually relieved she would be going away. However, it didn't make my life any easier. She would still come home every other weekend, and somehow, things would go missing from her room, or she'd find other ways to make my life miserable. My curfew remained strict, and things were tough. Eventually, my mom came to talk to me about my impending graduation. I'm only a year younger than my sister. She told me since they were paying for my sister's college, they had no money to pay for mine, so it would be better for me to start working immediately after graduation, and waiting until my sister finished uni to see if they could afford something for me. Oh, and if I decided to stay at home, I'd have to pay for all my stuff, part of the bills and rent. I pointed out I could get student loans. Mom said yes, except no. That is, because they were so caring towards me, and I had such bad judgment, they would decide if a college was worth my getting in debt or not. I'm not sure how they'd stop me from getting loans, but I didn't ask. Scholarships weren't mentioned. They had no idea what my grades were anymore, and never believed in my capabilities. Anyway, I didn't react much. I simply said okay. My mom seemed surprised. Maybe she was hoping for a tantrum to avoid paying for my college, but I remained calm and told her I understood their stance, thanked them for their concern, and left it at that. My dad later tried the same, but I didn't let my emotions get the best of me. You see, after a lifetime of their bad parenting, I never had any expectations regarding my education. I knew they'd find a way to avoid paying for my college and make my life difficult. I never believed they'd eventually come through if I worked and waited for my sister to graduate. I had been preparing for college for a long time. I had limited social life, so I had plenty of time to study, and that's what I did because I saw college as my only chance to break free. Well, the time came, and I worked really hard to earn a scholarship. It wasn't to a super fancy college like an Ivy League or for a high-profile program like law or medical school, but it was a good course at a decent college, and I had a full scholarship. Knowing my sister wouldn't like it and might try to stop me through my parents, I shared my achievement on social media right when I told them. I even made sure to thank them in the post. This way, they couldn't prevent me from going, or they'd have to explain it to the rest of our family. At first, they were somewhat proud and bragged about it, but then I guess my sister got to them, and they changed their attitude. They even questioned if I was sure about going. They mentioned that my sister wasn't doing well in college and insinuated that since she was smarter and had better judgment than me, I might struggle even more. I stuck to my decision, and while they weren't pleased, they couldn't do anything to stop me. College was my savior. I started being happy. I still contacted my parents and visited on holidays and such, but since they refused to pay for anything, I could excuse not going a lot due to money. During this time, I avoided introducing any man to them, and my sister stopped going to college. I know she didn't graduate because, again, they'd have made a fanfare about it. Moved back home, paying no bills or rent, but it's different, my parents said, and started working at the same company as my mom, obviously thanks to my mom pulling strings. This was all sold to me as a source of pride. Oh well, almost there, I promise. I met my husband around this time. You know those people that say that if I was in X situation, I'd have done something? My husband is the type that really does. I'm the person that is meek and a doormat in any situation and then can't sleep at night, wishing I had done something, had thought of something witty to say, etc. I'm the person that can't help but cry when I'm angry. My husband is the guy that claps back immediately. He loves drama, and that he loves to resolve it. He's the guy that if he doesn't immediately reply to a slight, you better start worrying because he won't forgive and forget. He's just doing something worse for revenge. He's the one that wanted me to post here, and wanted to post on a nuclear revenge board too, but decided what we did wasn't nuclear. People were baffled I got together with him. But just because I was incapable, thanks to my upbringing, probably, of acting like him, it didn't mean I didn't like it. I love that my husband does what I can't. And he treats people well as long as they do the same to him. When we discussed marriage, we decided we didn't care much about the ceremony due to our budget, as we'd rather spend on a dream trip to Europe for our honeymoon. As for where to do it, since his family was spread out and mine was still mostly concentrated in my hometown, we decided to do it there. We weren't living too far off either, so we could take some long trips during the weekends to manage stuff. Plus there was some work flexibility, so we could stay in my hometown for a bit too if needed. We sent out the engagement announcement and the save the date for a few months later. Well, at this point my parents naturally demanded they meet my man. I wanted to grow a spine and refuse, but was having a hard time. The distance had made me think maybe my parents weren't so bad. Well, my husband looked like I canceled Christmas when I told him I would at least ensure they were never alone with him. See, he had been getting ready for this. He even bought a high-quality recorder he could hide in a pocket to record it all. He was stoked, thinking of all the ways he could refuse my sister's advances, insult her, and then spread the recording of her attempts to my family. So off he went alone and excited to meet them, and came back later euphoric. Babe, you won't believe the awful shit they wanted. Babe, we can fuck them over so bad there's so many possibilities. I was confused and wanted to hear the recording, but he smartly told me it was better to listen to him first or else I'd misunderstand him. Well, he went there and instead of the flirting, my parents and my sister sat him down. After some grumbling about not being okay with him, my judgment, etc., they proclaimed they were willing to pay for my wedding on one condition. My sister would walk down the aisle on my wedding first in a wedding dress. Their excuses were that it wasn't okay for a younger sister to marry first, so it was only fair if my sister had at least the experience of it on my venue, with pictures being taken and the dress, and she'd have a cake later too, etc. My husband will now type his part. Hey, vengeful husband here, hell hath no fury like a pro-revenge/instant karma/nuclear revenge lurker when his beloved is scorned. That said, as much as my wife, she's my wife now, paints me as this quick-witted dude. I admit my neurons all but short-circuited when those folks legit suggested that shit like some sort of great fucking gift. Even Troy would rather take in the horse a second time, methinks. Alas, after my brain rebooted, I did have a whole-ass catalog of insults about to spew out, but something in my soul whispered in my ear like the devil, string these fucks along. So I said I needed to think, see how my wife, back then fiancée, would react, and then ran out of there before I could give away my nefarious plans. Back to me, the wife. So, my husband sincerely recounted how my parents wanted even my wedding to be about my sister, with a grin on his face, and had the recording to prove it. I was shocked. The distance had softened how bad they treated me, and I thought even they wouldn't go so far. Thankfully, my husband, insisting on the angle of revenge, helped me not go to a bad headspace. We had a blast thinking up ways to screw them over this, from ridiculously outlandish to what we thought was feasible. We then called his much more level-headed brother when we decided on a plan. It involved having 2 venue addresses, giving them the wrong one, etc. Well, level-headed brother scolded us for it. While he acknowledged he would never be able to convince us from retaliation, he at least showed us something like that would be hard to pull off. Some of our other ideas were also at danger of getting sued. So we eventually settled for the most benign plan. Act like we agreed, but then hire security and don't let her in. Obviously, if that was all, it wouldn't be pro-revenge. The rest is all mostly my husband, but he wants me to do the honors, so here goes. Just important to mention, everything he did was previously discussed with me, and were our mutual ideas. He went back to my parents, said he probed and thought I wouldn't be down with it. However, he didn't see the issue, and not wanting families to fall apart would be down to helping them do it. He pointed out, I don't like conflict, so if I was surprised with it, I might not throw a tantrum in front of all the people. On the other hand, marriage is a big thing, so who knew if I'd lash out? Thus, he suggested a compromise. They'd help pay for stuff. This way, I would feel even more pressure to not say anything, as not only would we be public, well, with our families there, but I'd be grateful to the help they gave and that'd mollify me. He said my parents looked surprised by my grown sisters starting skipping with joy, literally so, like a kid, so it was accepted. Important, my husband also claimed that due to some bad judgment in boyfriends in the past, these words were all my idea and I'm so proud of using their words against them lol. I was distrustful and controlling and liked to check his phone and stuff to ensure he wasn't cheating on me. As such, it was imperative that nothing of this plan was ever put in any writing. For any discussion pertaining to my sister walking down the aisle before me, he'd go over to their house to talk. And so began the months of deception, where my parents and sisters thought they were tricking me, and my husband and I were milking them. How? Well, rather than pay for the wedding than lay low, of course my parents wanted input in everything, some stuff that meant a lot to me, the songs and color palette. My husband would convince them to let it go to keep me in line. But since we never really cared for the ceremony to begin with, everything else was game, or so they thought. What we did was thus, we'd go, say, to check the drink and menu options. We'd then accept the lowest or second lowest priced option. My husband would then secretly take my sister there to also try it out, then sigh and say we don't want to abuse my parents' goodwill, so we wouldn't get the best options. Cue my sister demanding my parents pay for the best. My parents would then tell me not to worry, and they'd pay for the most expensive. Same was done with photographer. Flowers. My husband handed my sister a bouquet of the flowers we wanted, then sadly expressed how I wanted some other tasteless flowers. Cue my parents telling me they wanted us to go with said flowers, and they'd pay for it. Wedding dress. We hit a minor snag here. My parents wanted me to use a hideous dress. Okay, not outright hideous, but it wasn't my style and wouldn't look that good on me. We had planned on saying yes, then simply not using it, but my mom sent me a message about it, so there'd be proof I said okay. We had to go with me refusing in text and standing my ground. My husband went over there and said he'd see what he could do. My sister suggested ruining my desired dress so I'd be forced to wear the other one. He pretended to agree. During all this time, they really kept communications outside any text. We made sure that it happened by when my sister tried messaging my husband, have me reply to here. This solidified the I'm controlling and neurotic claims my husband was making, so they believed it and never risked anything in writing. And maybe some people might not like the thought of their partner going around and talking badly about them to family, but I'm such a doormat that the thought of being painted as this controlling and dangerous bitch is extremely funny to me, and I egged him on to do it. I guess I have a warped sense of humor, lol. Oh, and my sister did try to flirt with him, but he acted conflicted. Also, to really sell that he was with them, my husband would pretend to tell them things without my knowledge, but he never told them we hired security. It was really funny. My husband and I, who had sincerely considered a courthouse wedding to focus cost on our honeymoon, having this extravagant, expensive wedding and barely spending a dime. We called it back pay for emotional damages from my parents, lol. I think my husband, okay, he just confirmed I'm right, lol, was enjoying the whole tricking them more than planning our wedding, lol. I didn't think it was possible to witness a guy beaming at the thought of wasting his whole Saturday doing a car trip to discuss wedding details with his in-laws, but here we are. Soon the day came. The plan my parents/sister husband had come up with was, wait until everyone was seated. Since the bride always comes out late, they'd have my sister arrive at that precise time, to avoid me seeing her and trying to stop it, and walk down the aisle. By the time I heard what happened, it'd be too late to do anything. As for my dress, we saved some of the leftover fabric from my dress alterations, and my husband took that to my parents' place. Sister still lives with them, even now, and showed them as proof he'd ruined the dress. Then said he had to go back to me as I was raging and he needed to calm me down, he'd see them at the wedding. We made sure to keep our actual security hidden at first. As the guests and my parents arrived, all they could see was a woman with a list of names to check. Only after my parents arrived and sat down, did we bring out security, a guy that looked like a bodyguard. We told him to not allow anyone my sister in, and even agreed on paying a handsome tip if he didn't reveal we told him that. Soon the time arrived. My parents got a text my sister was less than 5 minutes away, so my dad went and told people to start. My bridesmaids had been told to follow his lead beforehand, so they obeyed without checking with me. After they all went down and took their places, my dad stood up at the entrance, as if waiting for me. During this, a friend not in the wedding party texted me to get ready. This, because if my husband or bridesmaids etc. took out a phone and started texting, people might notice. This friend was in on the plan. She's my husband's friend, as willing to help stir drama as he is, and didn't care about being a bridesmaid or anything. Well, as soon as my dad took his position, the bridal song started playing, the doors opened, and I come in. My dad looked aghast at me being there. He tried glancing behind me, but you can't see the venue entrance from where we were, so he couldn't see what happened to my sister. And then his phone rang. I saw the caller ID, and it was her. He just left me there with a mumbled, something came up. There were gasps and confusion all around. The friend in on it loudly asked what happened. I lied, and in a teary voice said he told me it wasn't supposed to be me there. It's not what he said, but my husband and I agreed that if he dared leave me, I should say that to make him look the worst possible. As for the tears, I wish I could say it was just my stellar acting, but no. Despite everything, a part of me didn't think he'd go as far as abandon me there, that the sister thing wasn't true but an elaborate joke. I don't know. I was hurt, still am, so I was sincerely trying not to cry. The friend then loudly went, "What did he mean by it shouldn't be you?" So that as many people as possible could hear and spread it, then went, "I will go and check," and ran off. We decided to do this to make her create hell with the security and stop my dad from coming back and stopping the ceremony or something. At some point, my mom also left. At this point, my husband's dad quickly ran over and took my arm. He'd been forewarned he might need to. Watching him run desperately to me helped me smile. I walked down the aisle to whispers as people discussed what happened. Some apparently left to check, too. When I reached my husband, though, all was well. He made me feel better, joking my sad face was so real I deserved an Oscar, and don't worry, he'd rake them over the coals for what they did, lol. We got married without a hitch. My parents didn't come back. I did notice a lot of people leaving then coming back during the party, but no one dared tell me what was happening. Someone did come and whisper in my husband's ear, and he went out. He came back after a while with a thunderous expression, but whispered in my ear he needed to go hide somewhere before he broke character and started smiling, lol. What happened is, it worked. The following is the summed account from family, the security guy and my husband, that I received afterwards. My sister did arrive in a wedding dress. The security refused to let her in. Per our agreement, he claimed she must be in the wrong venue because there was already a bride, and yes, we tipped him really well as promised. My dad went there and tried threatening him with police, claiming he never heard of him, so he couldn't be working there. The security agreed to the police since he was hired by us and doing his job. My dad realized by then it'd be too late and tried to demand he let my sister in. At this point, the friend came over, started shouting and insulting my sister and asking what was going on, basically stalling. My mom soon came and eventually other people. At this point, the wedding plan was bust. All my parents could do now is damage control, as everyone that learned about it was aghast they'd try and pull it and screaming and berating them. The three naturally said it wasn't a secret and threw my husband under the bus. At this point, my husband was summoned. When he came over, he put on his best look of confusion and denied. To quote him, "Gaslight gatekeep girlboss LOL, he denied having ever agreed to something so ridiculous. When they insisted he did, he demanded proof and of course they couldn't produce any. All text exchanges they could produce were about normal wedding decisions. My sister was scream-crying and apparently sat on the floor kicking her legs like a kid. My dad looked like he'd beat my husband, but security and other people held him back. Of course, they said they had no proof because my husband told them not to text. My husband laughed and said, "Wow, how convenient, huh?" Then again repeated, "Why would he ever agree to something so fucked up?" Tore them a new one about being awful parents, then said he wasn't going to let their stupid plans and lying get in the way of his wedding and went back to me. No one believed them. The venue had cameras, but they refused to show me the recording as that was only for security purposes. But some people filmed parts of it. Watching my parents and sister get ripped apart by any and everyone that came out to check the drama was delicious. After years and years of being accused of stuff and not believed, to watch them have a taste was one of the best wedding gifts. My mother was crying. My dad kept changing from purple to white. My sister was still on the floor crying and screaming. They kept insisting on that my husband was in on it, but people kept asking why would my husband agree? Why was there no proof? Why did they want my sister to do this to my wedding? And they had no good answer to any of it. Eventually they were told to leave and had no choice but to do so. My dad apparently had to drag my sister up as she refused to leave the ground. Again, people said nothing to me all night. I guess they wanted to spare me. And maybe it's because I was the bride and not just a guest for once, but it did feel like everyone was making extra effort to be nice, positive, and excited about everything. My husband says all the expensive shit they were eating drinking certainly helps. LOL. We had a blast. My husband maintained the forced angry face for only a short while before breaking out in smiles again. After that we went to the hotel to catch some sleep before going to our honeymoon. Speaking of which, my parents did try to pay for our plane tickets, but we thought that was risky as they could try and cancel them or something, so we refused. Of course, since that whole thing the three have tried to contact me, I've refused calls because my husband insisted on keeping a paper trail. I smart thing because my sister did eventually message me. I won't repeat it as it was very unhinged and didn't make much sense, but the important part was that she blamed me for her humiliation, called my husband a two-faced snake that fooled them for months. He wants to print and put that on our wall, LOL, and hoped, but was also certain it had happened, that I'd get cheated on by him. She did also suggest he was cheating on me with her, actually. My husband took my phone, screenshot the call logs, screenshot my sister's message, screenshot some messages of my parents demanding I pick up the phone, and sent it all to my family group chat, and sent screenshots of messages to him where they called him names and threatened him, but he kept up the, "You're delusional, I never agreed to anything" shtick, and even threatened to sue them for defamation and harassment. He wrote a message and said group chat begging my family for help as I was now being harassed by them constantly. He begged families to help stop them from trying to ruin my honeymoon now that they had failed to ruin my wedding, then finished neatly with a request that they don't share our locations, to avoid my parents sending my sister over, and then claiming he had somehow agreed to pretend to fuck her in our honeymoon suite, LOL. My family assured him they'd take care of it, and indeed, since then, we've had silence. My husband is a little disappointed my sister didn't disobey, so he could tattle again while tearing her a new asshole. We'll see if it'll last. All in all, while I obviously would prefer to have a normal loving family at my wedding, at least for once in my life, they not only failed to ruin something meaningful to me, but I got them back. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Extra info. Do I know why they treat me like this? I've been asked this question a lot, so I assume you all will think the same. I've wondered this all my life, and I still don't know. I tried asking when I was young, but they denied any difference and scolded me for acting spoiled, so I quit trying. I've thought of some many possibilities, but based on my observations, I think it's this. I was unplanned. They took a while to have my sister, so she was not only wanted, but also like a miracle child after so long. However, given our age difference is quite small, I think they didn't expect to have a kid so soon or easily, and didn't use adequate protection way too soon after my sister's birth, and maybe didn't notice my mom was pregnant until too late, so they were saddled with an unplanned baby while still dealing with a newborn. And they're not that well off, so having the extra expense likely didn't help. So they resented me, but that's my conjecture. Regardless, I've accepted the answer won't truly matter. What they did to me was unwarranted no matter what. Did they really think this would work? My husband and I talked, and we have the theory that they never wanted to do this at all. We think my sister threw a tantrum over me getting married first when she barely gets dates, and they gave my husband that outlandish proposition. As in, they didn't want to pay for my wedding, and didn't think we'd accept or that it'd even look good for them to do it. But by suggesting it and being refused, they could look like the good guys to my sister while having an excuse to not give me a dime. But then my husband accepted it, and they couldn't backtrack or else risk my sister turning on them.